We'll do the first one we have up on our site. Let's look at the Brown essay, Patricia Fortini Brown, on Venezianita, right? This is a chapter out of a book she's written. I considered it for a while for our class as a text, but because it's also relatively inexpensive. It's in our library if you want to read more from her, but the layout is not necessarily good for introduction for many people to Venetian art, so I didn't use it for that reason. But many of the people that I've chosen for readings, what made me choose the readings were two things. One was it something that we could apply to numerous works of art rather than just one, right? So I had initially thought of a technical study into a painting in the National Gallery. I realized that doesn't have sort of broader applications. So if you look through the list of readings that we have for the class, there's sort of ways of analyzing pictures that you could say, oh, okay, now I can think about this picture differently, even though the author didn't discuss it. Okay? That was one of my criteria. The other one was that there's a fairly heavy hitters in Venetian Renaissance studies, right? People who have published a ton, and they are real experts, right? This is what they don't just do Renaissance art; they do Venetian Renaissance art, or they do Titian, right? And I wanted to sort of use the required readings to familiarize yourself with some of the, the bigger names in art history. Most of them are alive; a few have passed away very recently, but Patricia Fortini Brown is one of them. She's a heavy hitter, as you might say, right, in Renaissance Venetian studies. So it's worthwhile sort of getting some information from her, since she knows what she's doing and I don't, right? So she knows this field much, much better than I do. Okay? So those are the two things. So our first reading, and in fact, Christiane Gaugier, our reading for Tuesday, is also a pretty heavy hitter, right? Written significant amounts on Venetian Renaissance art. Remind me after we talk about Fortini Brown and before I move into something else to talk about the reading response, because that's due. There's our first reading response is due on Tuesday as well, and I want to talk about it before. Otherwise I'll just forget. So somebody remind me. Don't go there, Mark. Talk about the reading response. Okay. I'll rely on you guys to keep me on track. Okay, what is Venezianita? What does that word mean? Help me out here. You guys got to discuss with me, right? You're supposed to read this one out. So what is Venezianita? What does the word refer to? I don't need a dictionary definition. I don't need to quote her directly. Just talk to me about it, right? If you want to quote her directly, Margaret, go right ahead, but you don't need to do that to answer the question.
It was basically like the art in architecture of the city, how it has its own way, and how it was distinguished from other art.
Okay, very good. So a particular set of identifying characteristics of Venetian art and architecture. No matter the medium, exactly. Now, is it just Venetian art and architecture, or is it a bigger thing than that? Exactly right. What makes Venice Venice, right? I hate the word, but it's uniqueness, right? It's culture, it's politics, it's people, right? What makes Venice Venice, right? So Venezianita is actually kind of given in the title of the chapter after the colon, the otherness. How is it different from other Italian cities, in particular during the Renaissance, right? Although the very end of the introduction section kind of goes into the 18th century, but during the golden age of Venice Venetian history, which is really what we're studying, right? It's 1400 to 1600, the high plateau of its power, its wealth, its influence, right? And not just in art, although that dovetails with it, right? What is it that makes Venice different from other cities? That's what Venice is. Remember. That's exactly right. And there are certain things that make that Venezianita is based on. Right? So what are these? What are the things that that really make Venice different. Yeah, Angel. Water, geographical location is actually a key element of it, right? Is its geography, its place on the map. It's the only city. There's a wonderful section when you talk about coming to Venice. It really kind of conscious of that, right? You come by boat. You don't go through a bunch of suburbs on your way there. Even today, right? Even if you take the causeway and drive there, you sort of drive through this marshy area, then the road breaks out and you come across the water. Same thing on the train, right? And you can see it out there, right? This is floating on the water. Yeah, that's right. And but the train now actually you just walk across one of the bridges. But if you get on a water taxi or just walk if you want to. But the point is that you come up on the city and it's sort of, you know, it comes to you usually out of the mist, out of the fog. It's magical, right? And part of that magic, part of that sense of uniqueness is indeed this geographical setting that's unlike anything else, right? Good. What else does he talk about as being differences? I'm gonna give people who haven't talked to this, okay, and then, you know.
The asymmetrical division of the city itself. Really? That sort of brought in asymmetrical kind of parts. Right.
And what caused that asymmetry? Do you remember?
It's based on its geography.
Mm-hmm.
The Earth is sort of deposited in a way that they can't really structure it in a grid like one was. They have to go by the geographical limit, not necessarily.
Right. Okay, so asymmetry. Okay, very good. And part of it came, you're right on the right track here, but part of it came out of the fact that originally the islands that make up Rome, or Venice, were independent islands, right? And each one of them had their own grid structure of streets, and then eventually they got connected by the bridge, right? And the problem was that Island A and Island B, we also, for example, in the island of San Marcos, didn't give, you know, a grid about what the other people were doing. So when you wanted to connect them, all of a sudden you're on a street here, and your grid was cut off to the right at like 45 degrees after looking at the street. And you'll find this in Venice, like they could go up, go over, go across. And this is part of the charter, right? The greatest city to get lost in. Because you're doing it, you take it as a given. And you'll come out of this valley and you're like, oh, here I am. Right? And you know where you are. So the asymmetry, both of these things, right? The water, the asymmetry, has a huge impact on the earth. And in fact, one of the things that's fascinating, I never thought of that connection before reading this actual essay, was that Venetian art doesn't have that sort of bilateral symmetry that we tend to find in a lot of restaurants. Bilateral symmetry where it looks really symmetrical, but it's slightly off on one side, right? Like our faces. Okay. But Venetian art will push things way off to the side, you know, and have all of this space open up to the other side where it just looks imbalanced in the world, right? It's not with the sort of a softly triangle that forms the grouping of the Madonna and Child and the center of the composition. So it's a right triangle where the side with all of the space on the left that you can't really tell. Part of it. So these are other characteristics, right? And really what we're getting to, I think, on a certain level is characteristics, but then there's another question that we talked about, and we'll come to this question, let's see what we see with this. So there's another section where she talks about causes as well, right? So there's causes, what makes, what came into play, why is Venice different versus how is Venice different. See the difference there? Huh? And in fact, the idea of being an island, its geographical center, is in fact one of the causes. Because again, the Venezia is not only the art and architecture, it's really everything about Venetian culture, society, politics, etc. Okay. What are some other characteristics? Other things you could say about the Venezia? So, no, you know. Right. Fantastic movie for you guys, Seven Seven. It's absolutely fantastic. It's creepier than Nicholas Rose, 1972. there was, I first saw it at the Metropolitan Museum 15, 20 years ago. They had a show of Carolina, who's the 70th century scenes of Oklahoma. And Donald Sutherland is an architectural, Donald Sutherland is son of Keeper, right? 24, the father. Was he in the Hunger Games movie? The white-haired guy took a speech to the list. Anyway, he's young. And he's an architectural historian, architectural restorer, what he doesn't say. And he and his wife have lost their child dead. Drowned, actually, in the pond of the British state of Gulfston. And they keep seeing the daughter running around in plastic raincoat she died in. Right? And then they meet this blind woman who tells them that she's their daughter, she's their daughter. And it becomes this whole sacrifice of freedom, right? From that point forward, because it's not their daughter, but it is. And it's just, and a lot of it has to do with them running around trying to find her, and we just talk about their top of the feet, and the most head move the dead, right? The dead end hit, or the street will come up and it'll hit the water and there's nowhere to go, right? And it's one of them. Go see it. It's fantastic. But be forewarned, there's a fairly graphic love scene. It's not actually a love scene, but it's really graphic, right? Just be forewarned that that bothers you, don't go, right? But otherwise, and it is creepiest movie ever. It's one of the creepiest movies ever. But it hits on exactly the same imagery, right? That's part of that. One of the things that we talk about this movie. Well, it's not what it's about.
Especially Dangerous Beauty, too.
Is that, I'm not seeing that.
About a real-life courtesan during the Renaissance, and it was based off of Veronica, based on Veronica, that's her name, based on Veronica, her last name, yes, based on this woman named Veronica who actually wrote, and was a well-known courtesan at the time of the Renaissance, Italy.
Yeah. There's a good number of movies set in Venice. Okay. Yeah. Please, let's go back to it.
One more is the relationship with light and water in Venice.
Right. So in fact, the light in Venice is very, very different, and because of the water, as you guys all know, like the Potomac, right? Across any of the Potomac crossings, and some days that river is gray, some days it's green, some days it's blue. And imagine if everything were that way, right? And part of the light in the water, the island we mentioned before, is also the mist, right? And if we think about the ancient painting, one of the things that we often read in the Huxley book is the degree to which they don't delineate things. It's like a misty transition between light and shadows, between colors and other colors, right? That they don't delineate the way that other artists in the Renaissance tend to. Okay, other characteristics of anything or anything.
It's like a huge trading post. It was in the middle between like east and west, basically, what was going on. So we've got a ton of like colors and neat stuff coming in, and also its citizens were very international and stuff. It had a different culture.
There's a next section in the middle where they talk about elements of Venetian art that is stronger there than anywhere else, which is the ongoing use of mosaics for art for church decorations, whereas the rest of Italy used frescoes, which is painting into the plaster, right? Now, when you're using a fresco, you're going to outline everything, you're going to paint colors, you'll have fields of color, because the way you paint a fresco is you put up as much wet plaster as you think you can paint in a given day. There's a lot of these things, probably all of these forces put together, right? And because you can't keep it dry right now, once it's dry, you're done, right? Just chip it off, start again. So they got very good about figuring out exactly how much plaster to put up. That means when you start to paint into it, that you get these broad expanses of blue, and you can modulate it, right? And model it in chiaroscuro, right? But with mosaics, you're sticking, you've got to put plaster, but you're sticking these little tiles, tesserae, plural, tesserae things, right? Not the size of, not that, right? Some of them can be bigger, but about a centimeter on the side, that's about right. And you're putting them into the wet plaster. That means if I'm going to make your face, right, I would have a tray of mosaics, and I'd be going to and all of them can be shot, right? So if I'm going to make your face be flesh color, right? I might have a green or a pink. Just when you back away from it, it looks like flesh color. You get it close, and all of a sudden it goes. Like if you ever blow digital pictures where you're looking at it pixel by pixel by pixel, almost like Finland, exactly right. I think almost if you get close enough to here, and I can see the little squares. Each one of them is a different color. But, and that really is a mosaic with very, very small digital touch on it. Right? And so to come up with, you can see where the Alps are here, right? Or in this picture, the tone that you're seeing is really kind of a trick, right? And mosaic is the same way. Right? So going back to this, the idea being a city of immigrants is a city of people that are come from very different backgrounds that have nothing to do with them, don't look like each other, don't act like each other, have different backgrounds. That's mosaic, right? It's a mosaic of society as well. That what makes Venice Venice, its uniqueness, is I don't think melting pot's the right word, right? Because this has been a problem with the term melting pot, is that melting pot assumes that all of these individual strains, which are different, will come together and become something. But that's not what we are as America, right? I mean, what we are as America is that we maintain the differences. We're not trying to homogenize the top. So it's about stirring the milk into the coffee to where it's all one color, right? We want to maintain these differences. We want to respect how that makes the picture better, right? So, then it's mosaic. Mosaic is in the new, right? All of whom can become nation-building, but also maintain their independent community status. And so you find in this, you have these communities of foreigners who work around each other and still see themselves as Venetian. But there's the most famous of them would be the German merchants colony. It's in the 12th century, the Fondasco dei Tedeschi, right? And many of them became citizens of Venice, but they still were moved. So immigrants is key. The reason I think those things are causes is there's a certain part of the text where he lists what caused the missing, and I have it in my lecture notes. Other things that characterize this, make it stand out, make it different. So many churches, right? And that goes back to this idea of immigrants. But was something like 130 different churches, right? I found this great website. I'll send it to you guys, where you can take this map of Venice. Remember we talked about this, how big it is, right? So we focus on how long it's small, it's that big. I've seen it once, right? So there's a big Venice show. So it's more like 2 of these 4. That's fine. But there's this website which just helps us identify all 130 churches. Blow it up so that on your computer screen will have like that logo, right? And I couldn't get hold of the download. It's an embedded viewer, right? So you can't download it. So it's going to and I've got a German table, it's not as big as that. Anyway, I'll either post the link or send it. It's pretty cool. So I've got churches everywhere, right? Part of this comes from, again, this idea of not just immigrants, but the sense of communities, right? The communities. That many of these communities are tied to churches as well, right? That there are different sectors of society that are deeply invested monetarily and psychologically, right? Mentally, in a particular parish, in a particular church. Right? So that goes hand in hand with that mosaic nature, the mosaic of different churches. Right? And these churches have different statuses which we've got to cover. And both of these churches have different statuses. What else?
So during the Crusades, this is from Venice, went to Constantinople and brought back like a lot of stuff. So they had this huge like Byzantine like influence. And a lot of stuff actually that was stolen, they like stuck in some of their churches and buildings.
Indeed. Stolen from the East, right? In particular, the Fourth Crusade was a huge event, right? That's what you're talking about, where they attacked Constantinople. Today it's just simple. being with its eyes to the sea, I think that's what we said, has its eyes to the ocean, right? But also has its eyes to the land. Was able to be this place where things are stable. One of the things that sets it apart on certain levels is that there were other seagoing, seafaring powers in the general here. But the difference is that it's a market. Things are traded in Venice, so people got to see them as they came through. Whereas Genoa was not also a marketplace, right? So the sea powers went out there between Venice and Genoa. But it didn't have the impact on society in general because it wasn't the place where these things did change things. So the people bought it from the East, and people were having to take it elsewhere in the West, right? So that meant that something out there could be seen. It'd be like living on Rodeo Drive in Rodeo Drive. It's just, wow, look at all the stuff, right? Or when it's actually compared. Wow. This is awesome. And not just fun, although textiles are part of it. Stone is part of it, right? Other exotic materials like the stuff that's made from Constantinople. Raw materials that are unique. We see paint in Venice with colors you've not been seeing anywhere else in Europe, right? Because of this connection to the East, right? There's all these things that typify Venice, and there's even more that we're not sort of scratching at here, right? But if we look at the text, right, you'll notice that, go to page 15 in the text, right? And just before we get to the first major break, right, you guys notice when you read an essay like this, or any essay, one of the things we look for is how the essay formatted, right? And because sometimes that's easy to conclude exactly what the author was trying to say, okay? And this one has 5 or 6 pages with no sort of phrasal structure. It all comes down to page 15. Yeah, page 15. We got a section break with a capitalized, italicized, quadruple font S, right? Opportune position. And there are 3 more of these as we work our way through the text. But there are 4 of them all told. And as you're trying to grapple with the text, and as we work our way through the responses that you'll eventually do, right? One of the things you'll be thinking about is what is this author really trying to get at, right? And in this case, the title kind of clear. Even though it's a chapter from a book, it's not an essay, published just all by itself, it's all by itself. It's going to try to talk to us about what is Venice unique to us, what characterizes it, and what process. Okay? So, if we look at this section on page 15, right before that break, you see Venice's particularity, okay, the peculiarness, right, the Venezianica, resided in at least 4 significant circumstances. Right? There we are. Charles at the point. It resided here. Vast trading empire. We mentioned that, right? Singular setting. Tenacious Byzantine heritage. We mentioned all these things. And now the thing that's more difficult in an art class to deal with is socio-political structure. Although we got to this idea of immigrant communities, but there's also something there's other things very unique. There's something very special about Venice's politics and the way society is set up as well. You guys remember this? The Doge, who's in charge, right? The Doge, which is Venetian dialect for duke, but he's not a duke because a duke had inherited power. They're part of the old feudal structure dating back to the 9th century. Under feudalism, right? Nobles, these would be dukes, kings, lords, right? Inherited power. Not elected, inherited. There was no social crossing boundaries. You couldn't, anybody can succeed, we think. Right? We say that. Anybody can succeed. Anybody can get anywhere in this world. You pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Well, that did not exist in the Middle Ages and most places in the Renaissance. And the idea of a duke is part of the old system, but that's just the word they used for it. He was elected. But elected for life, like a Supreme Court justice, like a pope. Right? You were elected for life But there was a little bit of they hedged their bets. They never put a young man in. He had to be, usually the Doge, when he got to be in office, was like in his late 60s or early 70s, so the chances of him living to right? So if we look back at the history of Doges, there are very few that are sitting as Doge for more than 20, even more than 15 years. In addition to that, the Doges had no power whatsoever to initiate projects. They couldn't say, I want this done and make it so. Right? They simply supervised the groups that did that. Right? So there's a power, but it's in check. Right? So the Doge is part of the socio-political structure, but there's also, there's a term we don't use much in America, but if you've ever studied India, you know what it's called, caste system. Right? You all know that term? Right? Which is basically solidified social difference. And we don't talk about it much in America, because I like to think it doesn't exist here. I mean, it's not caste, but it's not set in stone in the way it is in certain caste societies. Now, in that, it was solidified, right? There were 3 levels of society, right? And starting in 1297, with the Sarata, right? With the Sarata, these were frozen, right? The closure, the golden book, where anybody who's going to be at the upper level, right? Anybody at the upper level is that number is written in stone. There are 150 families and 2,000 men. Then there's a section below it. It doesn't matter how wealthy you got, how powerful you got, you never move to 2 to 1. And below that is the 3rd level. Most of the populace, right? The 90% you hear a lot about, but this is the 1%. The 90 on the 99, right? That group, again, some of them can be very, very successful, very, very wealthy, but they don't have to move to 2 or 1. That was a caste system. So, the Doge came from this one, right? Was elected by that group. What were they called? Remember? The Great Council is part of that, exactly. It is the Great Council is who they are, and they refer to themselves by 2 other terms. Right? So it's also Maggior Concilio, I think the Italian word. The Great Council is that group, and they call themselves 2 things in Italian. The nobili, the nobles, and the nobelli, right? The nobelli, the nobles, again, tying into those terms that were derived from old feudalism, right? And also they call themselves the patricians, right? Which basically comes from the Latin word for father, right? Patra, father, right? Patra familia, right? At least patra father, the same as our word is the Latin, right? They just we soften pater, father. Okay, so they were the fathers of the Union, if you will, the nobility. And the Great Council, right, were the ones from which the Doge was elected. Right? So this is our number 1, right? The one below it is the cittadini, citizens. Cittadini. Ciaicia. You'll learn how to speak the way you pronounce it, right? That's what average in our history, right? You learn everything. Learn a little bit of geography, history, right? How to pronounce things in Italian. The cittadini. And by the way, with the Great Council, we're talking about maybe 2% of the entire Venetian society. Sometimes the number is 1.3, sometimes as much as 5, depending on the overall. But remember that this number is set. So if population goes up and down, the percentage is going to change, right? Cittadini is like 7 to 10% civics. Right? So the next step down, they're very wealthy bankers. They're also often civil servants, right? Clerks and whatnot that work for the members of the Great Council and the different parts of Venetian government that were not the Great Council, like the Senate. Right? How do you keep the chief team happy? By telling them that they can, they know they can't move up. How do they stay happy? How do they not have riots?
People can always happy with somebody from last group, they can then have the church.
They had other outlets for leadership, right? There were other outlets for becoming involved in the Venetian society. So the Cittadini have these groups that are called the Scuole, right? The Scuole Grandi, the great school, the big schools. But they're not schools, right? It's a term that they use for what's, there's a big word that we use in medieval Renaissance times called confraternity, right? Brothers together is exactly what it means. Right? Con together, frat, right? Confraternity, brothers together. And in Venice, a confraternity was known as a scuole, right? Plural scuole. Okay? And these there were six. There were now eight. There were six big ones, Scuole Grandi, and there were hundreds of little ones, right? The Cittadini had the Scuole Grandi, the C-U-O-L-E, Grandi, the six great ones. Scuole Grandi, S-C-U-O-L-I, Grandi. And again, here's actually kind of visual. You can't type this stuff. Right? The last group, the lower ones, as Angela was saying, had also this sort of thing, that they had these scuole piccoli, the little, right, the little scuole. And what these confraternities did was that they were charitable institutions. They were places where you participated to do community service. Which, because everybody believed in Venice so much, right, they don't have to. You know what I mean? It's really true that if we bought into our state, the way the Venetians did, we wouldn't be worrying about 50% voter turnout, right? We should be embarrassed with 50% voter turnout. That's usually good for us, right? It's embarrassing. They bought into it. They believed in, they had civic pride, right? They were different. They knew this. They knew this. So this was an opportunity to serve the city. The Grandi were bigger, huge, right? 500-600 members. The people were smaller. If they got big enough, they could move. Does that make sense? So a Scuole Piccola could bump up to a Scuole Grandi. And that in fact happened. One of the six was bumped up in 1670, one of the period, right? And there's since, there were six in the Renaissance. There were three to begin with, right? And in fact, the fourth one that was added was older than those three, but was bumped up. Obviously, there was some flexibility in it. So there's no flexibility in taxes, but there is in these rules. And people took it really seriously. And be in charge, being elected, right? Being elected to be in charge of one of the schools, whether Grandi or people, right, was a huge honor. They took it very, very seriously. And you rose, right? You know, march in the civic procession, and you get to be all the way back with the peons, you got to right? You know, and these civic processions we don't really have. They were made to sort of reiterate to the world, this is what society is, how it's structured. And here, they have a mechanism. So if you get in front of one of those lines, right, there you are. Sorry, I had to head for it very well.
I was just wondering, like, you know that they can't go up to, like, say, the second or first
They never moved from, and the third one is Popolani, the popular. Popolani, general popular.
So what if they married someone from a lower?
I don't think they did. I don't think they did. I think there's been past, especially for the group right from the Great Council. Because those were written down by families. Right? That's a good question. I don't have the answer to that. My guess is that it was quite, as it was throughout much of medieval society, society. And by the way, marriages were, there's the romantic idea of marriage where you find somebody you truly love and you marry them and they're your best friend and you love them for life. And that's the way it really was up until about 1920, which is where your parents got together to figure out who was best for you to marry for the family. And that was what it was, and you might get lucky. But you might get something that you love. You might go to love those who love. But usually those marriages were arranged with the idea of keeping family dynasties intact, keeping family wealth from being parsed out. And so when we get something like, I kind of think of a good classic piece of literature from this period even, that would give you that kind of romantic idea of marriage where the family keeps it. Isabella fell in love with Eduardo. This is in Boccaccio. This is in this camera. And her brother killed him because he was upper middle class. Cut off his head. It's a great story. Because then she goes and gets the head and she puts it in a pot, covers it with dirt and plants basil in the pot, and tends it as if it were him. And has this big, beautiful basil plant that's going on his head. Great story. Anyway, so we think existed with this idea that there should be other motivations and status. But on the norm, those are the things that break the norm. And even in those, if always in those narratives, they break the norm. Right? So, but I don't have statistics, and I can't give you any more information about what it might happen. But I think Papalani, taking Papalani, is to be what she means. And obedience to it. That's just my general sense. Right?
My question is the role of the medicator. They start off as gangsters.
But they're not then.
Sure.
Right? So we see, this is again, this idea, this is a part of the NSCME set, is this idea of a caste system. And if I can't even mention that where they share certain things with other Renaissance cultures, right? So one of the things we see happening in the Renaissance, first word Renaissance, right? Rebirth, the term, right? So rebirth, ancient Rome, or at least the idea of cultural institutions and some of the artistic styles of ancient Rome. That's what the idea of Renaissance is. Rebirth, right? That's the idea that the Middle Ages were bad. That there's a Middle Ages. They're not all what they are. They are what they aren't. Does that make sense? There's a time between Rome and the Renaissance. There's a Middle Ages. Right? So they're defined by what they aren't. And the idea propagated in the Renaissance was that Renaissance culture was great and so was Roman culture. Something between three of us. Right? And part of what Renaissance did was to revive this thing that got lost when the Northerners came there. Right? So when Italy was invaded, the continent was invaded, it's not a country, right? They don't have a country identity. People have a citizen. They know that they share a language, dialogue with the same language. They understand, geographically speaking, that you're all in one common land. They understand that you're separate from Europe by the rest of Europe by the Alps. They knew all of this. That's all well understood. They knew they weren't like the Germans. They knew they were the people different, but they didn't think of themselves as a country. Italy's not a country about 1830 or so. Right? That's very, very late. Right? After Napoleon, right? Is really when European countries start to get defined. Okay? But they do have a sense of separation. But Renaissance society, on one level, when we talk about the Renaissance, we talk about this idea that some of the ideals of ancient Rome were reborn. And in addition to that, for art, for literature, what comes with that is a sort of formal return to the style of literature, the style of art that was being produced in ancient Rome. Right? That they argued was not ever done in the Middle Ages. But still, that's the case, right? Another way of looking at the Renaissance is great. So one of the parts is great from medieval society is this idea of reflecting on. Another way that they break with medieval society is political, where they're going to break the feudal system, where the idea that you were born into a particular class and you stayed in. And even in Venice, up until 1297, that's pretty late. That's the time that Dante is writing the Inferno. Okay, so we're at the beginning of the Renaissance. This is Giotto, right? That's the Sirocco, that's on the shut. Up until that point, up until 1297, Venice has been around from probably the 7th century, maybe 6th century. Up until that time, you did have something. Right? You could move. But the clergy, the Sirocco, noticed that you couldn't anymore. And that's a fairly late development. And certainly us, as we're starting to class with 1400, but it's late historically speaking. Okay? So, if we think about another way of defining the Renaissance, part of that is a break with the feudal system that comes with the rise of major cities. See, the feudal system only works when you're in the countryside, because a lord, a king, has dukes, counts, lords, who owe their fidelity to that king in return for protection, right? And each one of them then has areas of land that they sort of lease out with the same kind of agreement, okay? So counts are below dukes, right? I don't remember where lords are on this, but and each of these, so the other sort of pyramid scheme of this, right? System that comes down. And when you finally get to the people who are directly in charge of a small parcel of land, rather than being in charge of a bunch of people who are in charge of a bunch of people who are in charge of a parcel of land, when you get down to the single supervisor, they have the peasants working for them in return for protection, right? And so the money that's generated by the land goes to the Lord, who then owes part of that to his Lord, who owes part of that to his Lord, up to the king. Okay? Eventually to the Emperor, depending on if you're in the history part of the Empire, or the Empire. Okay? This is all well and good until you start to get cities where, like the Medici, people are buying and selling and trading and making money outside of working with the And the earliest cities where we see this are where we start to see the Renaissance in Florence, Siena, up north is Bruges, right? Paris. And these are the major economic centers of Europe, and they're the major cities where we start to see the feudalism break down, because it doesn't matter then. You're not, your livelihood is not based on the land, your livelihood is based on craft, right? Handicraft. I don't mean to use craft. Based on handicraft, but it's also then based on your job. Like the Medici, who the family began as doctors, right? Medicine, Medici, right? But it turned to business. Right? And once they became the wealthiest people, they then became more powerful. Now, they were smart enough to never get elected to office. They just had to appeal to it, right? They got people they would, bust your kneecaps or, you do what I said. Venice is part of this idea of a city where, because they don't really, you're in the water. A great line, right? They got corn everywhere and meat everywhere, but there's not a lick of grass in the entire city. Right? The Americans take control of this area called the Terra Firma, which kind of goes over toward Milan and the Dolomites and Lake Garda. That's the big lake. That is in Lake Garda. But this has become known as the Terra Firma, and they're under control of it. And they've also got a map that develops control of the foundation coast, right? And some of the big islands, this is kind of officially. And it's all because of the shipping. But they too are breaking the structure. But they have, after 1297, this tax structure for that. It resembles feudalism on the one hand, but on the other hand, these are people who are major wealth, maybe developer wealth, but are now within the great council. And one of the things they mentioned, in addition to what Angel said about bringing in this slowly as part of the way in which you appease people who will never own real power, is that you could be a just being and have more money than someone who does. Right? It wasn't just based on So, that was a huge sidestep. Venice going back to page 15. Venice's particularity resided in at least four significant circumstances. Singular setting, vast trading empire, tenacious Byzantine heritage, and the socio-political structure. Right, so we were just talking about that. And if you look at the next four sections, she doesn't use the same title, right? But if she follows them in exactly this order. Right? So pages 15, right, through 19 talk about the singular setting. Then if we go ahead to page 19, right? A favored emporium. Trade, right? Emporium is a place where things are bought and sold. So we get 7 pages talking about trade, right? We move ahead, page 26, the Byzantine paradigm. We'll talk about the Byzantine heritage, how that made Venice unique, right? And then finally, the last one, the city of immigrants. That's the society and politics, which is the last 4 pages, right? So it's a really well-structured essay. If you pay attention to these keywords, right, and start to look for what something that might resemble a thesis statement, that will then structure the rest of the essay. So there's nothing that says introduction, right, at the top of the beginning, but you're going through anything, you see these breaks. You should really, when you're critically reading and trying to closely read text, pay attention to layout, right? Because sometimes those are little clues, double returns, keywords that help to identify. In this essay, I will discuss, right? Or in this case, when we get to those first pages, there's some background that she's going to refer to again and again. So some historical background is important sometimes. And this is what Venice needs to be. What the peculiarity of this city comes from these things. Right? Those are the causes. So I don't have written up there Byzantine, although it's, I guess, quotes from these might add into that. Right? Now, when we say Byzantine heritage, Byzantine paradigm, do people know what I'm talking about? Please do not be shy. You know what we meant? What is the, okay, where was the Byzantine Empire? Present-day Turkey and much of Eastern Europe, actually. But at its height, present-day Turkey, and spreading further afield than that. Jay, you were going to say the same thing? So on this next map, right, the capital of the Byzantine Empire was Constantinople, right? But it includes Asia Minor, Little Asia, right? Asia Minor, which is also Turkey, mostly, not entirely, but mostly, but it also includes most of Greece, right? Asia, and then up sort of around the northern part of the Black Sea. Its legacy is most strongly felt in 2 or 3 places, all relative to the situation. Down here in Sicily, there's a strong Byzantine influence because the king of Sicily in the 13th century, one of the top of the also king of Constantinople, and those Constantinople Russia didn't really wanted it, so they started having churches put up in the Byzantine style. So anyway, that never worked out, right? And he was part of the Norman, oddly enough, from here, right? Okay, so that's one place to see it. That is the other major place to see it. And then into the 19th century, Russia. Russian icons all based on old Byzantine temples. So, and it's all because this empire is here, so it ends up having the same right? Now it's not there, as you may know, because Constantine decided in 310 that he's going to move from Rome to Constantinople. That's Constantine, right? It's going to be his capital, it's going to go set it in Rome. And this is part of actually the reason I'm mentioning this is not just because I know it, but it's also because this was part of what brought Venice into being, was that, it lost power. It got its power back into the West, with decent decrease. And that's why all these lines that you see on here are the movement of different non-Europeans, non-Romans, and back into the world empire. This is where the Anglo-Saxons were, where the Franks ended up, where the Lombards ended up in Lombardy, where the Vandals vandalized Rome. That is where we get the word. Yeah. So part of this movement of people through the West is what drove picking probably 560s or so with the Lombards. They said, no, it's 410 with the Goths, right, with the Visigoths. They wanted to create a new fabrication, a new myth about this, right? Okay? So if we go back through, we can talk about each one of these sections in greater detail. We've kind of already gotten into that, right? Is that Venice has a unique characteristic that's different from other cities in Italy. Its art looks different. Some things will look the same. A couple things we haven't mentioned here, which are absolutely key, and one of them is based on what I'm just now talking about. Venice is the only Italian city that does not have a Roman heritage. It was not a Roman city. A major Italian city. Every other major Italian city has a Roman legacy. Rome has settled it. But there was no Roman settlement in the lagoon off the coast of this particular region, right? It was never there. There was nobody living there prior to 560, or as they tell it, 420s. Okay? It's a new city. And for them, I'll give you a second. Right? For them, this is a really important part of their tradition because they think they're better than the Romans. Everybody else, that legacy was crippling in a way for them. They're like, no, we're new. We're inheriting the mantle from ancient Rome. We're going to be what they were. But instead of being on the land, we'll be at the sea. And we have other things about our society that make us better than them. That's that pride. Okay? So the idea of them being founded when Rome has fallen is for them an incredibly important part of their history, their legacy, their sense of self-identity. Right? Go ahead.
Saying that they this pride of not being Roman, unlike the Old Testament,
right. And there's a great picture. I'm going to bring it in and project it because there's a fantastic picture, a painting that shows the Annunciation. Because they say that not only were they founded in 421, but it happened on the feast day of the Annunciation. Let's put it down, right? 3 o'clock, 3:05. No, they didn't say that. But the feast day of the Annunciation. So you know the Catholic calendar, right? Every day is a feast day for most days, feast days for a saint or an event. And it's April 21st, I think, is the feast day of the Annunciation. Is anybody off the top of their head? I think it's April 21st. But I said the 21st one because of 421, which is the year they give, right? But there's a picture, and I think it's in the Humphrey text. Yeah, it's on page 18 of the Humphrey text by Bonifacio de Pizzati. I like overpronouncing things in Italian. It's just, when my wife was trying to teach Margaret and her group how to speak Italian, and part of the thing that they always say is just have fun with it, make it theatrical. That's really the way it sounds. Bonifacio de Pizzati. But there's a picture of the Annunciation. There's the angel coming to Virgin Mary telling her, here comes the New Testament, here comes the new dispensation of grace to mankind that replaces Moses. Right? When Moses came down from the Ten Commandments, part of the old dispensation was you follow the Ten Commandments, there's your salvation, right? The law. And what's replaced for Christianity is the idea of grace, the grace of God. There but for the grace of God go on. Right? And the Annunciation is where that new covenant, that new agreement on how to have salvation takes place. And here it is with God moving through the heavens, looking just like Michelangelo in Sistine Ceiling. But he's moving over the Piazza San Marco. Right? The Annunciation to Mary was a parallel for the beginning of this. Right? And Rome was the Old Covenant. Rome is the Old Testament. Rome, right? And Venice is Rome. Right? They're that special, right? So there's the Annunciation that is really, you can see where that becomes a very important part of being Venetian, is being different, being other. Right? In modern day lingo, we often use othering as sort of the negative sort of thing. But this is positive, right? They are different. Okay? So that's another really important thing about this, right? They're not Roman. And one of the things that this meant for Venice, not having a Roman legacy that they could point to, what this meant for them was that they also didn't have any major Christian relics. Right? Rome's got St. Peter's body. You saw it, right? You saw the finger when you were there. And I believe them, actually. The story that they told about how this was found, it actually seems pretty credible. But most cities had relics, especially around the Mediterranean, of saints that lived and died there. But there was no Venice there in the first place. They didn't have any. So at first they adopted St. Theodore, and then what happened? They got St. Mark, right? They got the body of St. Mark in Alexandria, where he had died. Do you know the story about how they got the body of St. Brought it back, but do you know how they got it out? This is the best part of the story, right? So it happens in 829, so it's, early Islam. And they're going to try and get the body away from the infidels, right? That's what they call them. I'm not supporting that kind of mindset. Take it away from the people who don't believe in St. Mark, and give it to somebody who really use it, right? And so I can't remember the fishermen or traders that are down there that are going to steal the body, but they have to get it out of the city. So what they do is they stick it on a cart and they cover it with pork products, so that the halal, right, laws that prevent Muslims from getting anywhere near pork, they won't come anywhere near the cart. They won't inspect it, and they're going to wheel the cart out, load it on the ship with all of this pork chops, and ham, and they're going to take it back to, and that's how they get it out of Alexandria. It's this great place. They stick it in a crate full of pork, and then nobody will touch it in Alexandria. It's got to be listed. Where's the pork come from? But anyway, that's the story about how they got the body of St. Mark, and without being detected out of Alexandria in the first place when they hid it. They hid it under a big pile of meat. Right? So they got their relic, right? Now, when they established the monastery, the cathedral, it's not a cathedral, the church, the major church for the body of St. Mark, it's a Byzantine church. San Marco is just Byzantine in every possible way. Layout, decoration. Byzantine like churches that had a centralized plan. Christian churches are like a cross, right? It's by accident, but they do. So you've got this long nave, and then you got the crossbar, the transept, and then the apsis past that, right? So it looks like a cross in ground. Byzantine churches look like an X, basically, right? So all of the arms were equal length in a Byzantine church rather than having a longer nave. Okay? And that's exactly what San Marco is. And in fact, San Marco is actually based on a church in Constantinople, the Church of Holy Apostles, which was, I believe, built by Constantine. It's gone now, right? The 4th century church in Constantinople formed the basis for San Marco. Right? So not only it's basically a sign that they have their eyes. And for most of its early history, from this period onward, up until I can't remember when their independence is. It's in the text. They were at first a satellite of the Byzantine Empire. They were the Western trading post of the Byzantine Empire. They had direct political links, and then they become independent. But that connection is still there. And this is why not only with the Fourth Crusade that Amanda mentioned the Fourth Crusade, the 1204, the Fourth Crusade, why that many of those folks came directly back to Venice. The horses on top of San Marco came from Constantinople. The famous statue of the 4 tetrarchs, Constantine's father and his group, came directly from this, and as did tons of other things, right? As well as raw materials that are kind of part of other stuff, right? All came from that. But in addition to that, when in 1453, which is now in our period, right? What happens in 1453 to Constantinople? Ottomans overthrow, right? They attack Constantinople, sacked by the Ottomans. Eventually, they keep the name Constantinople. It's not officially changed until like the 1920s, right? And we think that, Istanbul is Constantinople. That's one of the things I think that's where it came from. Is a sort of a difficulty with pronouncing Constantinople. In any event, when that happens, The Venetians have been trading through Constantinople forever, need to figure out what they're going to do next, and they have, with 1470s, strike a political accord with the new Sultan, Mehmed, right? Exactly, so they can continue trading. Okay. Right. Okay, we got 10 minutes left, and I want to talk about the response process, right? The reading response, because there's more to talk about with this. I have more background stuff on the PowerPoint that's up on Blackboard. We haven't gotten any further than we were before. But I do want to go over the response project. So I'm going to open up, give me just a second here. And I am going to open the, actually this recorder's not going to be working anymore now because I closed the program that was recording, so I'm going to hit pause, right? This part won't be recorded.